Good evening, everyone. Pardon my notes. My name is Ed Higgins. I'm the Science Department Chairman here at Bryn Athyn College, and I get to welcome you to the next installment of our Distinguished Speaker Series. Tonight's speaker is Dr. Elizabeth Kahn. Dr. Kahn started her education here at Bryn Athyn College, where she spent 1 year and then finished her training at the University of California, San Francisco, where she got a degree in physical therapy. She practiced physical therapy for several years and then went to medical school at the Medical College of Pennsylvania here in Philadelphia. Graduated from MCP and then did a year of pain management training at the Sloan Kettering Memorial Hospital up in New York, and followed that up with a family practice residency at Montgomery Hospital. She's board certified in both family practice and pain management. She's also board certified as a medical review officer, so multiple board certifications, multiple society memberships, among which are the American Academy of Family Practice, the American Association for the Study of Headache, the American Pain Society, and many others. Dr. Kahn is currently the medical director of the Personalized Longevity Medical Center. Outside work, even with all this, she has time for a family life. She's the mother of 4 daughters. She exercises, she runs, she's done 5Ks and half marathons and is a swimmer and has a really, really interesting talk for us tonight. So welcome, Dr. Kahn.
Good evening. That's pretty loud. I'd like to start this lecture off by asking you a question. What do you want to achieve in life? I will try and help you answer that question tonight with some stories that have helped me along the way. First, I'd kind of like to get a sense of what the audience is. How many people are in the college in the room? All the back row, I can see that. Okay, and out of all those students, how many of you were born and raised in Bryn Athyn? 1, okay. And of the students left, how many knew about the new church before they came to college? Just a couple. Okay, and are there any out there that knew nothing about the new church prior to coming here? Wow, that's impressive. Okay, great. Now, out of all those students, how many are biology majors? Oh, good, that's good. And is anyone interested in a career in medicine? I love that, that's excellent, good. Okay, so I was born and raised in Bryn Athyn. I attended the college, as you heard, for 1 year before transferring to a college in California. I believe the New Church of Jerusalem gave me a great gift, the understanding that beliefs matter, and it also gave me a collection of beliefs that shaped my path. We believe anyone can experience heaven, and there are many pathways to get there. Everyone has value. Everyone has an opportunity to contribute in a meaningful way. These beliefs shaped and formed my openness to experience life in the fullness. My first main point out of 3 is that we are all explorers who are creating adventures together on our own paths. See yourself as an explorer who is creating a great adventure for yourself and others. Have fun. It's important to focus on what you want to create. Focus on the positive outcomes you want to experience in your adventure. Don't hold on to the bad ones. They will never bring you joy. You see, misery is optional. You are free to choose what you want to create, and misery is among one of those choices available to you, but it's not the most fun. By holding on to good things, good stories, the ones that cause you to feel good, you will create more. There is great value in seeing yourself as an adventurer on the path to creating heaven on earth. This belief will expand this in your experience. Now, about 5 years ago, I decided my husband and I should travel. I said to him, I don't want to wait till we retire. I want to do it now. So I came up with a huge bucket list. My husband will tell you that I have the list and he holds the bucket. It's probably true. So about a week and a half, his bucket got a little lighter. We went to my number one place, top 10 on my bucket list. This is Machu Picchu. That's my 17-year-old, and she's standing right behind the ruins. Now, we were in Machu Picchu, and our guide wanted to take us up this mountain. It's rather high, don't you think? She said, my girls and I had an amazing desire to climb it. However, we weren't quite sure we'd be able to. My husband insisted that my life insurance policy may not cover me if I fall. But my two youngest girls really wanted to do it. So the next morning we decided to go as far as we felt comfortable, and our guide insisted we could go back at any one point. There's something about having a desire, a goal, and reaching it that brings us an overwhelming satisfaction. As you can see in the next picture, Machu Picchu is now way down there, and that arrow is pointing to the trail we climbed up the baby hill to get to the very large hill. And it took about 1.25 hours. It was 154 flights of very strenuous climbing, but we did make it to the top. Again, that's my daughter looking over the edge on the terraces. And then if you see the last picture, you can see how happy we are to be walking down. It is so much easier going down than up, I gotta tell you. And if you can see how steep those steps are, it was really amazing that we accomplished it. Now, you can do this with little tiny desires, but you can also do this with big life-changing desires. The first step, of course, is trying to decide what you want to do. There are many choices, and the world is your oyster. I've been where you are all sitting many years ago in college trying to decide what I wanted to do. I thought I actually wanted to be a child psychologist first. Although I liked medicine, I was never confident I could get into med school. My final catalyst was going to my psych counselor after a long drive from California. I asked him what courses I need to take in order to graduate from college. After his third insistence that I take the courses I feel I want to take, I said goodbye, walked over to the biology department, and signed up as a bio major. Now, I took a very circuitous pathway to becoming a doctor. I got a degree in physical therapy from the University of California at San Francisco first. However, I was always more interested in the whole body and how it worked, and how medicine plays a role. I had 3 goals as a new physical therapist. One was to teach in a physical therapy school, one was to run my own outpatient center, and the third was to further my career by education. I obtained my first 2 goals within the first year and came to the realization that furthering my career, I truly wanted to go to medicine and treat the whole body, not just the individual parts. It took guts for me to go back to school. All along the way, I doubted whether I could get good enough grades to get in med school or high enough MCAT scores. I had a great job as a physical therapist and a very good income. But it wasn't my destiny. I had more to offer. Most people thought I was crazy. We may have desires, but being scared that you won't accomplish a goal makes it hard to focus. Often people say things to discourage us, and we begin to believe that we're incapable of reaching the goal. We are afraid of failure. Being afraid can stop the adventure. How many of you grew up thinking you were not good at math, so that engineering was totally out? Or you were told you were not good in writing, so forget journalism. Our experiences shape us, but they absolutely do not define us. This leads me to a great story about the elephant and the rope. A man in India was passing by some elephants when he suddenly stopped, confused by the fact that the huge creatures were being held by only a small rope tied to their front leg. No chains, no cages. It was obvious that the elephants could, at any time, break away from their bonds. But for some reason, they did not. He saw a trainer nearby and asked why these animals just stood there and made no attempt to get away. "Well," said the trainer, "when we were very young and much smaller, they use the same size rope to tie them. At this age, it's enough to hold them. As they grow up, they're conditioned to believe they cannot break away. They believe the rope can still hold them, so they never try and break free." The man was amazed. Obviously, these animals could break free from their bonds, but because they believed they couldn't, they were stuck where they were. Like the elephants, many of us go through life hanging on to a belief that we cannot do something, simply because we failed at it once before. Failure is actually part of your learning. Never give up. How do we stop these beliefs that hinder our goals? Give up old dogmas and exchange them for new ones? People may get in your way and tell you can't do something, but if you stay focused on your desire and believe and trust, you'll be able to accomplish what you desire. Amazing things will happen. Don't let fear of failure define you. Before I got into school in California, I decided to take 6 months off. My parents were beside themselves, questioning if I would ever further my education. My dad is in the audience tonight. Hi, Dad. I moved to Florida and was living with my sister. I landed a very lucrative job in a nightclub hotel. One night, I had a very large physician group of pathologists. I was taking care of them for a luau-themed banquet. I was dressed in a sarong tied at the side, and there was Hawaiian music playing in the background. The tables were decorated with palm trees and pineapples. And I was excited to talk to this group and ask them about medicine. You see, I was toying with the idea of being a doctor, but not quite sure I could do it. No one in my family was a doctor, and I never really talked to a doctor about a career in medicine. So, in between the pina coladas and succulent pork, I began asking them questions. They in turn asked me what my long-term plans were. Shyly replying, because I'd never really verbalized it often, I said, "I'd like to be a doctor." They laughed a little. Then one of the doctors asked me, "So what is your GPA?" I proudly replied, 3.5. They scoffed at me. "You will never get into medical school with those grades." I was crushed. I couldn't believe they said that. Yet, at that moment, it was a spark for me. It lit a fire in me that said, "Watch me." Follow your intuition. Mine was telling me med school was right for me. This is how divine providence shows up. It lights a fire in us. This leads me to my second main point of the evening. Divine providence is always working for you in your favor if you listen to it. And that feeling of excitement, that spark of joy, it's actually your inner guidance directing you through your emotions. Some people call it destiny or chance and even luck. Whatever it is, it's always there. So it's not only deciding what you want, but also owning it. Fear cannot own us when we believe in divine providence. I'm sure you can relate to the thought that someone in your life somewhere said something to you that resonated with you and made you make a choice or change your decision. In a conversation with my dear friend who cuts my hair, hi Christine, I was talking to her about my career path. This was about 8 years ago. And what I might explore next. I was interested in alternative medicine, but unsure of what course to study. All my patients were taking supplements and asking me about them, like which ones are good, which ones interfere with my traditional medicine. But I just didn't know what to say because they really don't teach you that stuff in med school. Alternative medicine is a billion-dollar business and everyone is on something. So I figured I'd better learn about it. Christine suggested a TED Talk she had just heard from Dr. Terry Walls. In this TED Talk, Dr. Walls explains how she had debilitating multiple sclerosis, or MS, and was unable to continue her practice. She was in a wheelchair with a reclining headrest because she didn't have enough strength to lift her head. She was on every medicine for MS known to man and on very high doses, but she wasn't getting any better. In fact, she was getting worse. Grasping for anything, she turned to metabolic medicine, which put her on a healthy diet, added supplements, and prescribed general exercises. Not a lot of rocket science, but the outcome was amazing. And in the TED Talk, she is walking around the stage. So as a result of watching that TED Talk, I decided to study metabolic medicine. Since then, I've become boarded in anti-aging metabolic medicine, and I can now look at the metabolic reasons for illness rather than giving a pill to fix the symptoms. I've helped many more people than I ever did in traditional medicine. So being open to new ways of thinking is really part of my exploration and growth. Visualize your outcome. It's not just the wanting to want something, it's actually the visualization of the outcome with the emotional desire. Now, what do I mean about not only deciding what you want, but also to own it, to feel it, to visualize it? Let me give you a quick example. I had a patient who was part of a book club discussion group in which a bunch of 50-something-year-old women were talking about intimacy with their husbands. One of the books they had been reading was discussing this. And one of the participants mentioned to my patient the idea of wanting to have intimacy. My patient got fixated on this phrase and began to think about it. She began to use it as her own, as if she was focused on wanting to want to. Although she herself is a very positive person who understands the value of focusing your thoughts on what you want to create, she didn't catch it, that she was focused on the yearning, not on the experience itself. While in my office, after taking her blood pressure and all the things we do in the exam room, I suggested to her that instead of thinking about wanting to have intimacy, think about having the amazing intimacy. Stop focusing on the yearning. A little surprised, she left my office a week later, only to tell me that that was the trick. And now, after a long time, appreciating the experience of intimacy and that she and her husband were having much more fun together. So it's focusing on what you want the outcome to be along with the adventurous path you have in front of you, and you will make amazing things happen. Now, I believe you can learn anything if you have a good teacher and the desire to learn, someone who will teach you what you feel drawn to learn. Failure is not the end. It is part of the adventure in learning and growing, and teachers will show up in many forms and many shapes. Something unexpected happened to me. My sister insisted I take a 5-day watercolor class with her. When I resisted doing this, she said, "I know you really love me if you come down and take this with me." That was the ultimate guilt bomb. Taking 5 days off was extremely hard for me, especially with having kids at home and a busy practice. But I knew I couldn't say no. So I went. That painting teacher took us out of the box. She made us begin to see that we could actually create something. I came home and began to try it and kind of got stuck. I knew I wanted to take lessons on a regular basis, so I began to search for a teacher who would be able to teach me how to create paints I love. So 3 years ago, I met Diane Hutchinson, who agreed to teach a class for me if I could get 4 people to join me. Now I have a group of friends who paint together for 3 hours each week, and this has deepened our friendship and our ability to see ourselves as creators. My home and office are also filled with my paintings. These are some of them. This is an early watercolor I did 3 years ago, going into Bora Bora. And then, after much persuasion, Diane convinced me to do oil paintings. Remember, I never painted 3 years ago. She insisted I would love it, and I do. This is Lehigh Parkway, which is real near my house. And then my last picture is my most favorite subject, and that's sunsets and clouds. People may get in your way or tell you you can't do something, but if you stay focused on your desire and believe and trust you'll be able to accomplish what you desire, amazing things will happen. But never give up on your intuition. I learned this very clearly while in medical school. My director, he said, I have a classic case for you to diagnose. He wanted me to go in, get a history, do a physical on a patient, and then present him with my diagnosis. I really wanted to do my residency at this hospital and was very anxious about impressing him. After examining the patient, I told my director, the patient has diverticulitis. My director laughed. No, he has classic signs of kidney stones, he said. Oh my God, I felt so stupid. Recognizing my failure that night, I went home and studied deeply on kidney stone symptoms, diagnosis, and treatment. I wanted to be prepared for the next day. So, the next day when my director called me into his office, I was sure I was going to be belittled again for my mistake. My director asked me, what caused you to think this patient had diverticulitis? I wanted to be honest. Honestly, I didn't have anything to lose at this point. So I explained my point of view and how I reached my conclusion. The director said he and the surgeon had been certain the issue was kidney stones. But when the patient deteriorated later that night, they took him into emergency surgery. They opened the patient up and discovered he did, in fact, have diverticulitis, and it had ruptured. He said, the patient's symptoms had fooled everyone but me. I had listened deeply to my patient and to my own intuition, and I was right. The final point I will ask, of the talk is look for and respect the good things in all living beings, including yourself. Someone's wealth or profession does not determine their value. Wisdom can come from anyone. Divine providence can work through and with every person. This shows in our willingness to listen to the ideas and advice of others, no matter where they're coming from. The fact that your paths have crossed in this moment is important. My husband, Yasin, hi honey, also a doctor, is my role model in this belief of looking for and respecting the good in all living things. Perhaps because he grew up in Pakistan and the belief system he was brought up in. He asks for advice and suggestions from everyone. When he's focused on creating a solution, he will ask the person at the deli counter, a patient, a friend, as well as the head of the hospital. He will listen, knowing that truth and wisdom can come from anywhere. Yasin never treats a person as if he were less than or not his peer. He even asks me for advice, which if you've been married for a long time, you know that's a novel thing. He is kind, generous, and full of love for every person he talks with. Being with him is always an adventure on creating fun. So in conclusion, this is my family, my husband, and my 4 girls. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to reflect on what enabled me to create the adventure of my life. I am living, and to be able to share this with you tonight. I feel like I have only just begun, and I invite you on the path to creating more joy with me. See yourself as an explorer who's creating great adventure for yourself and others. Have fun with it. Divine providence is always working in your favor, especially when you listen. Look for and respect the good in all living beings. Remember, we are explorers who are creating adventure on your own path. Decide what you want to do in life, embrace it, visualize it, and you'll see the final outcome. You will be amazed what you can create. What questions do you have for me tonight? Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Could you tell us about something that you thought that you might want to do and then decided not to? And what was the signal that this was not the path versus these ones that were the path?
Well, I can answer that something I haven't done yet. So I thought I wanted to write a book. And I actually went to and I've never written before. Matter of fact, I think I skipped a lot of English classes in college. And I got with my sister, who is an excellent writer, and started writing a book, came up with something, but I haven't finished it yet. So that is something that's in the wings, if that answers your question. And I was sparked to do that. I actually had a dream about the book, and that's how I had it. And I later learned that Twilight was developed because she jumped chapter 16, I think. So I thought maybe it would be a good idea. Any other questions? Here, 1 second.
Hi. Can you tell us about the book? Is it fiction or nonfiction or?
It is fiction. It is about the Mithric religion, which a lot of people don't know, but it's similar to the Masons. So they had a degree of different sections you could go into, and it was really started in the Roman times.
Yeah,
So,
I was just going to comment. I've written nonfiction books, but every time I've tried to write fiction, it's really hard.
I agree.
So good luck to you.
So thank you. In medicine, we talk about see one, do one, teach one. That means you see a procedure, you do a procedure, and then the next time you teach it. And that's kind of what I thought writing was about, and it's so not. I think.
Did you take that picture of the clouds?
Sorry?
Did you take that wonderful picture of the clouds, or did you find that somewhere?
It was kind of in my head. As my teacher says, it's really hard for her to see what the picture's like when it's in my head.
I wanted to ask you, you had started in traditional medicine and then you went to alternative medicine. What would you suggest for people who are patients that also want to go that route, that they started out in traditional and alternative is speaking more to them? How do you make the segue as a patient from having come, I don't have anything against traditional medicine, and it's life-saving in lots of things, but if you have any insight on how an individual, particularly as you're aging, I feel like it's a really important thing to grasp, to actually build a team to take you into the next phases of life. So if you could speak to that.
That's a great question. And I think that, first of all, it's to find someone who's open to it. So a physician that's open to both of them. I think there's a bridge between traditional Eastern and Western medicine. I think that as I age, I don't want to age. So that's why I became boarded in anti-aging metabolic medicine. And I can tell you honestly that I've helped so many more people using alternative methods as well. Unfortunately, in medicine, we're taught, here's a pill. You have a problem, here's a pill, this will fix it. And then they have problems with that pill, so they give you another pill, and then another pill because you have a problem with that pill. And it's kind of a spiral down. So for me, I try and get people off meds, not on them. And as a patient going into that arena, I think you're your best advocate. So if something doesn't feel right, I think it's really important you listen to that intuition, because usually it's not. So my advice to you as a patient would be to look at a physician who is more open to things like that, who might prescribe something like that. And metabolic or functional medicine are the buzzwords for physicians that might do that. And both the Institute of Functional Medicine or the A4M, it's called, lists all their practitioners on their websites as well. And it really is the study of the metabolic process. So all you people who are doing biochem or anything like that, I actually relearned my biochemistry from medical school as I started studying this, because there are supplements you can take that's in the middle of the Krebs cycle that will actually help you. And I think those are important to find out too.
I'm Dave Flockhart Murphy, and I am an elder care evolutionary. I noticed that you belong to the American Academy of Anti-Aging, and your credentials mention longevity. What do you do in working with what my mother would have described as olders, elders, ancients?
So anti-aging believes that we age because of mitochondrial dysfunction. And I know all you guys know what a mitochondria is, right? So we don't really look at that in traditional medicine, but the little mitochondria that are your powerhouse in your cell gives you the energy to produce things. But as we age, we actually get dysfunctional mitochondria, and that creates more problems along the way. And sometimes our body can't get rid of those dysfunctional mitochondria either, and that also is a problem. So they are, as you age, there are a number of supplements that can keep you healthier, and I think that's important.
So I would rather not age if I could. What are the
I'm
top,
so with you.
What are the top 3 things one could do to prevent aging? Any particular supplements in general, activities, things like
Okay,
that?
the first thing is eat healthy, and that's the bottom golden rule. To eat healthy, to eat more vegetables, less meat, eat organic as much as you can. That's number one. Try not to put bad things in your body like nitrates or preservatives. That is the bottom line. And then to add supplementation, it depends if you're on traditional medicine or not. There are a bunch of different supplements that can help you. Simple ones, like in this region, most of us need to be on D, but they also, the newest findings is it needs to be with K2, for example. That actually helps the D get more into your bone. So vitamin D in this area is huge. Most dysfunctions start from the gut. I thought I'd never say that 8 years ago, but they really do. So our whole immunity and allergy is all started within the gut. So getting the gut calmed down is an incredibly important thing. And the way you do that is usually taking probiotics, besides eating healthier. But taking probiotics, we have a natural layer of probiotics that protects our gut. It limits what can get into our system. It also limits what can get out. So as we break that down through taking foods that are not organic, additives, preservatives, antibiotics, we actually get a leaky gut. And leaky gut is what is thought to be all the bad things, even cholesterol. For example, heart disease, it's thought that it's not the plaque, it's not the high cholesterol, it's actually the inflammation in that vessel wall that allows cholesterol to form plaque. So.
And can I follow that up? You mentioned eating organic. What's your thoughts on GMOs?
Avoid them at all costs. So wheat, it's very hard to find wheat or corn in this area that is not GMO. So they do have them, but it's hard to find them. So, any other questions? Any questions about med school or getting in or?
I actually have a question. With eating healthy, do a lot of your patients see nutritionists? Do you work routinely with nutritionists or dietitians? I feel like that is becoming more common that you see physicians' practices working in tandem with other institutions. I'm just wondering what your experience is there.
Absolutely. And in med school, we take one course of nutrition, and most of us skipped it, I hate to tell you, because it was kind of an easy class. So I've gone back and learned a lot about nutrition, too, in my training. And it works much better working with a nutritionist. Sometimes it's a financial thing, because often insurance doesn't reimburse you. Sometimes the insurance actually have nutritionists, or at least dietitians, on their board, so you have freedom to call the insurance company and ask. And then I do a lot of nutritional counseling as well. But it's really important. I mean, if you could do one thing to decrease your aging, it would be eating healthy. So.
What were the things you did to overcome your so-called low GPA, or, when you said watch me, what were the things you did to get into med school?
Oh, good question. So I think taking 6 months off, even though my family wasn't quite happy with that idea, really helped me to solidify I do not want to be a waitress for the rest of my life, and that I really need to do something. And so I had more conviction. So I think getting the idea of something that I wanted to do was the main thing. And I think that's what happens a lot of times to kids in college. They don't know exactly what they want to do, and it's hard to commit yourself once you don't, until you know that, until you feel that fire under you. So. Anything else?
Do you think fish oil and that kind of thing you shouldn't even take, or?
Which one?
Fish oil.
Oh, sure. I believe you should take fish oil. Fish oil is very good for your brain. Fish oil is very good for the neuron sheaths and everything. It's also helped to increase your HDL, as your good cholesterol, as well as decrease your triglycerides. The problem with fish oil is it's made 2 different ways. So one way they make the cheap fish oil you buy in the drugstore is they add ethyl alcohol to it. And trust me, I don't think you want ethyl alcohol in your body. But what that does is it lowers the melting point of the fish oil so they can extract it dirtier and cheaper. It also gives that fishy taste. The other way, people like Nordic omega-3s with a molecular, those companies actually do microfiltration, which they take out the heavy metals as well as not adding ethyl alcohol to it. So.
Get one that's called wild salmon.
Yeah, the only way to check, well, there's some ways to check. Usually the ones that they add ethyl alcohol, they add vitamin E2 or tocopherols. So you can check on that. The other thing is if you bite, if you dare to, bite into it and it tastes fishy, it's not made the right way.
This is much better than the other ones I used to take.
Okay, so maybe it's made through microfiltration. But that's supplements, the whole, I mean, it's not a regulated thing, so it's really important to get supplements from a good, reputable company. And they do make what they call medical grade supplements, which is very, very important. Because the ones you get at buy one, get 2 free or whatever, are usually not made. And unfortunately, a lot of those are made in China, so you don't even know you don't have no idea what's in it. So. Okay.
Are you
And
still,
there's another question back there, sorry. Oh, sorry.
are you still accepting people into your practice?
Yes, so I am practicing in Allentown, but I do run what's called a subscription practice. So what that means, it's through a company that administers it called MDVIP. So a year ago, I took my regular based practice, which was about 3,000 people, and brought it down to 125. And what I did is, it's an annual fee to join my practice, and with that annual fee, you get a full physical, you get audiometry, EKG, you get ankle brachial index, you get a full labs from the Cleveland Heart Health Lab. That's all paid for with your subscription. And then all of my patients have my phone number, they have my email, they have access to my office anytime. So it's a different way to practice, and for me, that's been just a godsend, because rather being like a little hamster on a wheel and being an hour to 2 hours behind, I can actually spend a full hour with my patients and a physical exam or whatever time I need, which is amazing. I think this is the way medicine should be. And the government did try and make something. They tried to do the medical homes. Medicare did, and it didn't work out at all, and they paid very few people for it, unfortunately. But I think it's the way medicine should be. So, someone else had a question?
Someone that wants to go into medical school but doesn't know like what specific field necessarily they want to go into, what kind of tip would you give in like finding that out, like figuring it out in order to be like make sure you're doing what you love?
Well, that's a great question. So I couldn't narrow it down, so I went into family practice. So in family practice, I treat I treat young children, I treat kids, I treat middle-aged people, I treat adults, aging people, all the whole gamut. You can actually deliver babies in family practice if that's something you'd like to do. So it also gave me the ability to be independent. So being a physical therapist and working for a hospital, I thought that I really didn't want to work for a hospital again. And I chose a profession that I could do that and still be on my own. But I don't think you ever know it until you start going into the rotations. If you can volunteer in a hospital and kind of see what they do and what's out there, and then you have to kind of follow your intuition, see what things you get interested in. Do you like really going into surgery and opening people up and seeing what's in there? Or do you prefer more trying to figure out what the person has or where the lesion is? So, and also in terms of, do you like to do things more with your hand, like procedures, or sit down and talk to the patient? And that kind of helps you go either way. So, I'm glad to see so many people want to go into med school. It's a great profession. My oldest daughter up there, she's in her second year at Jefferson. So, good. But thank you all for coming out tonight.